Well, it's actually quite a nice period to think about. It's almost to go through the to-do list, go through all the scenarios, and unfortunately that can create a bit more stress as well, because generally the scenarios are built around things going wrong. If this happens, then what? But it helps clear my head a little bit at the same time as well, just get the priorities in order. And then there's a bit of time to access the players if I need to. Now, I think this is a really dangerous period for coaches, because there is so much swimming around in a coach's mind an hour or two before the game, and the temptation is to bombard the players and either give them information that's over and above what they need, or to remind them of something for the 10th time, which just annoys them. So that is an active process for me of trying to not avoid the players, but avoid talking to them about the specifics too much. Most of the work's done. It's really about being in the right psychological frame of mind to attack the game. This is my 10th season now, but I still remember my first game coaching the Cats. Was against St Kilda at the MCG, and I had spent a lot of time that week thinking about what I would talk about, and still wasn't really sold on what I would say when I was driving over the West Gate. And it was almost at that point I decided, if nothing else, I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to talk about the things that I think are right in the moment, as opposed to being too scripted or pre-prepared. And that's something, even though it has evolved, it's carried through all the way until today. So, in the whatever it is, I don't know how many games I've coached, how many times I've talked to the players pre-game, but I've never pre-prepared that meeting. Put a few things up on the board as some cues for me and for the players. But I do my best to speak from the heart and talk about the things that are the most important for our performance, in my opinion, at the time. And there's been plenty of examples where the sort of things I suspected I would talk about half an hour before the meeting completely change 5 minutes before the meeting, based on a little conversation with Joel Selwood, or something Harry Taylor said to me, or the feel that the assistant coaches have got. So hopefully it's natural, hopefully it's succinct, it prioritises the key areas. And also I hope it's not just to make the coach feel better about himself, because that's the way it can often be. You just, whenever we lose, and this hasn't changed for me, but whenever we lose, the coaches always feel as if it, to a large extent, was their fault and there's something we should have done. And then again, you go back to that temptation pre-game of wanting to have told the players everything you think might happen, so that you can satisfy yourself post-game that if it doesn't work out, well, at least you told them. And I don't think that's conducive to a good environment. So while it's natural and while it's pretty unstructured, I'd still like to think it's pretty disciplined as well. Yeah, well, once we get up to the box before the game, it very much is over to the players. It's still a bit of a nerve-wracking time, so we try to break the tension a little bit. I think anyone that's been in there would say it's surprisingly relaxed in that period. Pretty quiet, try to break the ice with a gag here or there, which is not my strength. But then in the minute or so before the opening siren, things do start to happen. You start to see the opposition players go out to their position, and it becomes pretty hectic then, because we're really going through a checklist of what we thought was going to happen compared to what is actually happening. So is the guy we thought that was going to start in the middle actually in the middle? Is he playing in defence? What do we need to change? And then the communication's pretty hectic between the coach's box and the bench as well, trying to communicate that message, because one of the key reasons for being in the box as opposed to on the bench is that you can see those things so much more clearly than you can on the bench. So there's no point us seeing it if we don't communicate it to the guys on the bench. So it's a bit hectic, that first little bit, and a bit nerve-wracking as well. Probably like the players, it takes a couple of minutes to really settle into the flow of the game. Oh, most of the time it's a relief that at least on that day we were good enough to overcome the obstacles in our way. There are very, very few games, if any, these days where I arrive at the game ultra confident. I wish I could say that it was more an overwhelming sense of joy, but for me at least it's not. It's just what a relief to get that one in the bank. And I try to convince myself to find a way to enjoy it a little bit in the next couple of hours. But generally that sort of manifests in just feeling a whole lot better than I would be feeling if we had lost. It's a sense of relief, a sense of contentment, as opposed to that one time where you feel that overwhelming sort of joy and exhilaration of a win. And it only comes after a win in a grand final, unfortunately. But I'm learning to try to enjoy it a little bit more because smarter people than me have said to me for a long time, people that have been in the game, involved in the game a long time, that if you can find a way to win 70% of your games, you're just an outstanding success, which means you're going to lose 30% of the time, at least. And they're going to be really hard. You're not going to be able to change that much. So you've got to find a way to enjoy the 70% of times where you've found a way to overcome.